The Dallas Cowboys season is on the line. They are on the line on Sunday night. It is that. And if the Eagles blow the doors off of Dallas.
Possible.
If the Eagles, let's just say, do something similar to what happened to Dallas at home, where they forgot about Zeke Elliott in the second half, where they got inconsistent play from Dak, a goal line interception in the end zone, screwed up special teams, which again, when the kicker misses, that's on the owner and the general manager who told Dan Bailey to see you. If that happens, then all questions, and Al and Chris, I'm sure we'll talk about it during the broadcast. Is this it for Jason Garrett? Would Jerry Jones make a midseason change at 3-6? It's really rare to climb out of a hole when you're 3 games under 500. But when you're 0-3, it's much easier to do when you're that than when you're 3-6. If you are 3-5 and you fall to 3-6, in order to get to the magical 10 wins that you would have to think more often than not in NFL seasons is required for you to make a playoff, you then have to win out 7 wins in a row to get to 10. The math is terrible because more often than not, a team that has lost 3 of their first 9 does not have a 7-game win streak in them. So much easier to make the playoffs from 4-5 than 3-6. We always talk about the difference between 0-2 and 0-3, but the Texans just showed you this year the season is not over when you're 0-3. But you've got now a bunch of 3-5 teams I want to hit right now. The Detroit Lions. If the Detroit Lions can't go into Chicago and beat year 2 Mitchell Trubisky in his home turf. Now, we've seen Mitchell Trubisky and the Bears look so much better at home than on the road. The Bucs will tell you that. The Patriots went in and smacked them down, but that has been somewhat of an outlier in Chicago. The Bears are better at home. Chicago has beaten a bunch of teams there, the Jets being one of them, obviously, Tampa being another. If Detroit wants to save their season and show that last week's 10-sackapalooza on Matthew Stafford is not what is an outlier, it is not what they are about, they got to win this football game. They have to win this football game. If they have any designs on a playoff season in Matt Patricia's first year, this is win or go home now. Because if they go to 3-6 and they've traded away Golden Tate, players are going to start looking around and go, okay, what are we doing here? How much support do we really have here? And then you're going to start talking about Matthew Stafford's making a gajillion dollars and he can't even win more than a third of his first 9 games. And does Matt Patricia there's doubt and all that stuff creeps in. That's a huge game for the 3-5 Lions. The Jaguars are coming off their bye week at 3-5. The Colts are at 3-5. Now, you could sit here and say the Colts are pushovers. They really weren't much anything. But Andrew Luck is playing his head off. Jack Doyle is now healthy. This offense is better than most. And they might have a chance to play with house money at 4-5. 3-6 is a different story. And then there's a situation with Jacksonville. A team that made the AFC Championship game last year. They get Leonard Fournette back. He's not on the injury report for the first time in maybe since going into week 1. And they've got to get this. They fall to 3-6. I'm telling you, I saw that coaching staff in London. I interviewed them before the game. They were sick to their stomachs. Literally. Sick. And looking around and wondering, where did the team that whipped New England in week 2 and punked the Giants in week 1, where did that team go? Because the same guys are in the locker room, and they traded away Dante Fowler. And if they don't win this week and they fall to 3-6, And the team that they've already lost to is on their bye week at 6-3. They're 3+ games behind Houston. It is all on the line. A big AFC South game. Jacksonville's got to get it. And if the Colts get it, then they're in house money territory. And Luck's coming off a bye. They're both coming off a bye. That is huge. The Bucs at 3-5. You could sit here and say, well, the Saints have run away with the division and Carolina's so much better than them and Atlanta's now 4-4. But there's a whole front office and a coaching staff that's got their jobs on the line. And they got Fitzmagic going against a Redskins team that lost both their starting guards. They've got to win this one. They're at home. They have to win this one. And then you've got at 3-5 a team that is Jameis Winston their guy or not. And if Fitzpatrick balls out and keeps Winston nailed to the bench, that's an interesting conundrum, but one that they'd rather have than Fitzmagic getting his you-know-what beaten into the ground, and they put Jameis Winston out there in the third quarter, and the Redskins beat him up too, and they're 3-6 with no daylight around them and a coaching staff and a front office that will be questioned by the Glazers. This is a big game for them. And then you've got the 3-4-1 Packers. They're not 3-5, but they're a tie away from being one. Or I guess let's do it right for the Packers fans. They're a terrible call away from being 4-4. But you are what you are. You're 3-4-1. You've got Brock Vember coming to your house. You got to beat him up. You got to take care of Brock Osweiler in the same way that the Jets did on the road last week in Brock Osweiler's house. You got to beat him up, and you got to win this football game. And you got to go to 4-4-1, and you got to tell everybody out there to RELAX, and then you've got to keep moving forward because you got a big short week at Seattle where crazy, you-know-what stuff happens to them, with a big visit to Minnesota on Sunday Night Football on the back end of Thanksgiving weekend. Packers have yet to take care of business on this football field in Green Bay the way that people have expected them to. If they didn't pull one out of their you-know-what on opening night, it would be far worse. Is Mike McCarthy going to be retained or not? 3-5-1 would be just an absolute total disaster if Miami goes in and beats them. That's a big game. And then there's Dallas. I mean, at 3-5. 3-6, Sunday Night Football, whole country watching. If they pull out a goose egg, if they don't get Amari Cooper schemed, what if Amari Cooper doesn't do anything but the new addition for Philadelphia does? What if the running game that Philadelphia has put together with Scotch tape is better than the one with Ezekiel Elliott? What if the Hot Boys defense gets sliced up by the red-hot Carson Wentz?
If that game is 31-10, how does Garrett stay?
Because what's the point? Who's coming in? What are you going to put in Scott Linehan, the guy that everybody points the real finger to for the scheme?
Well, then why hasn't Jason Garrett taken back play calling duties?
We talked about it with Jeff Schwartz the other day, where I'm like, if you're talking about the scheme and how obvious it is that they're not doing enough play action, that they're not doing enough to confuse defenders, Jason Garrett's smart enough to know that too. He's played the position as well. Linehan's smart enough to know that too. Why don't they do something about it? If they don't come out and have their own like dally special on Sunday night, and they fall to 3-6.
If the ship be sinking, like, take the reins and own it.
I think Hugh Jackson wishes he did.
Yeah, we saw where Hugh is. Hugh's ATC.
At the crib. All right, that's the setup for Sunday. I'm telling you, everyone focuses on the 0-2. It's the 3-5 in my mind. Because 0-2, you fall to 0-3, you still have, even though it's not very often that you see teams climb out of a hole from 3 games under 500, at least you've got a lot more runway than these teams at 3-5 do.
The Rich Eisen Show, weekdays at noon Eastern on Audience.